Welcome. This is David Bowles, Human Meme. Today's topic. This is where you fit. Who decides where you fit or not? Well, you'd be surprised how many times in my life I've been told, you don't fit. And the most recent example of you don't fit was the superintendent in my old apartment building. His name was Jimmy. And you can read more about Jimmy by going to bowlesblogs.com and doing a search for Jimmy Spins the World. Just be careful what you wish to read. You've been warned. Anyway, one day, after living in the building for over a decade, Jimmy sees me and comes up to me in the hallway and says, out of the blue,
"You don't belong here. What are you doing here? You don't fit."
Now, my human meme friend, Jimmy the Super, lived to say outrageous things to people. And he'd say these terrible things about everyone and everything. But that moment was the first time he had talked to me that way. To me, about me. And I was a little surprised by his aggression. In the past, we'd had conversations about the quality of the building and the temperature of the neighborhood. And we had talked about how the landlord, the building owner, did not want to make improvements to the building because, in the words of the landlord, "This ain't Fifth Avenue." And that hurt Jimmy's feelings, because he believed the building was Fifth Avenue quality, even though it rightly was not. So Jimmy tells me I don't fit. And I ask him, what does that mean? And then, of course, he goes on to tell me that the neighborhood is a little rough and that he's surprised I live in the area, in his building, even though I'd been living there for 10 years. And I guess now, looking back, I kind of understand what he meant to say. You could touch all the continents in a 1-block radius of the building. And me, I guess, in Jimmy's mind, me as a lily-white guy from Nebraska, I appeared not to fit into this worldwide diorama. Now, why it took Jimmy 10 years to tell me this, I don't know. But I did fit. I like a variety of people. I like people who work, blue-collar people, whatever you want to call them. Those are my people. Those are the people I grew up with. I like real people. I appreciate funny. I like smart. I fit because those were the people in my neighborhood. And let's say it straight right now. Jimmy was a very proud racist and a bigot. He admitted it. He was proud of it. It was his fact of the matter. And Jimmy was an old-timer whose parents were born in Eastern Europe, which makes you think he might be a little more sensitive to the neighborhood, to those around him trying to fit in and trying to rent from him. But no. Jimmy was not interested in helping anyone unlike him. And it was really no secret how Jimmy talked to and about people of color, blacks, Muslims, religion. And he talked to them on his cell phone, and he would put it on speakerphone when they would call to inquire about renting an apartment. And I guess he just thought he knew who they were when they called by the sound of their voice. And he hated them. And he loved to use that speakerphone to have open conversations for anyone and everyone around him to listen in and to make fun of him and disparage his callers. And I hated that, too. And when I used to tell Jimmy that I really hated some of the things he said and did, he admonished me. Which was also shocking that he was offended, but he went on to explain. He was angry that I hated. He said that word, hate, must never be used, never spoken. I guess it was okay for Jimmy to hate someone without even knowing them, as long as he didn't actually say the word hate. And I don't know if that word hate was used against him somewhere, and if he was sensitive to it, or if his proud Catholic upbringing was ringing some rusty bell of hatred and he was obliged to respond to the call. I don't know. So anyway, I guess Jimmy meant, by implication, and without really saying it, that I didn't belong. I didn't fit in, because I was, in his mind, relatively educated white Midwestern, and I had a job. And I suppose, in Jimmy's brain, all of those things disqualified me from fitting in this sort of big city neighborhood on the East Coast. Jimmy told me I didn't fit in the building, as he explained. I didn't fit the area, didn't fit the city, even though I have always loved the urban core. And I appreciate the people who make the big city their home. In fact, one of my first blogs online was called Urban Semiotic, for a reason. And I tell you, when Jimmy would start this path and get racist and cocky on his speakerphone in the hallway, that was always the sort of signal to me to end the conversation and to find a reason to leave. Because when Jimmy would start to talk about people that way and begin to disparage them, he wouldn't stop, really. He'd just go on and on all the rest of the day. And I was not going to waste a second more of my time trying to understand where and why his hatreds were coming from and why they were so strong. So, in conversation with Jimmy, I always tried to keep it light and neutral, and I was very careful never to agree or even to disagree with him, because that was never the point of those rants. Wasn't looking for education. He just wanted to spew his poisonous opinion and then see if he could wrench a reaction out of you. And I just did not want to give him the pleasure of seeing any sort of pushback or response. So that quick and weird conversation about me not fitting in has stuck with me all these years later, because it does make one wonder where one fits in the world. Do you fit everywhere you go? Or are there certain places where you feel more comfortable that you fit in? I do my best to try to fit. I may not always be successful, but I always like to try to give it a go. I'm happy to learn new things, try new things, and repress who and what I am and was and will be, just in order to get along with a larger group. I tend to be quiet and less called upon. And sometimes the most important thing about fitting in is listening, and to know who you are, and to understand your place in the world, no matter the context. But often, people just don't want to fit. They want the world their way. They don't want to hide who they are and what they believe they are. They want the world to bend to their horizon, and not the other way around. And that is a problem. There's no arc to getting along, because people who refuse to fit in on the long arc of humanity are those who just refuse to get along. And sometimes There are times when you need to get things done. And that means quieting your mind and fitting in with the group. The greater goodness really is more important than the individual self. And democracies are built upon the truth of that indelible fact. And that's why fitting in creates the historical frame and the vision of what we aim to become as a people. Because if you don't belong, if you don't fit, if you don't fill in, then you will never have a hold, never a handhold. You will never have a hand to hold on humanity. And you will have a problem begging for a solution that falls harder and clambers louder than the spike of the self, looking to stake a claim in the land that cannot belong to the bitter clang of the selfish. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.